Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hey everybody. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's going on?
What's going on? I'm still recovering from the weekend. So
You imagine if Adam Peters and Lance Newmark put me and Kime on a text chain about their off-season plans? Imagine.
I mean,
I wouldn't tell. In fact, I wouldn't even like reveal that I knew. That's me. That's the difference between me and the Atlantic, but whatever.
I was going to say, my thing is if I was the Atlantic is I would have stayed on that chain for as long as I could.
So
that's what I would have done.
If they had, though, I would have been like, oh, like I think I would tell them, like, I'm on this text chain, obviously accidentally, but I'd like to stay on it. May I?
Yeah, right.
Like to know what you guys are doing.
Let me just lurk. Let me lurk on this one.
Yeah. We did this a couple weeks ago where I asked the audience, what do you want me to do here? And well, yesterday, Maryland won on a buzzer beater, which they hadn't done in a very long time. They got to the Sweet 16 for the first time. Boy, the Magic's rubbing off around here. The Commanders had a crazy run, hadn't had one like this in a very long time. Caps are on a heater of all heaters, and now it's rubbed off on Maryland. They're in the Sweet 16 for the first time in a long time, and they're having a palace coup. And we started the show and spent a long time talking about Maryland, and you all revolted. So you've been heard. You've been heard. I'm not going to not talk about them because I like them and I like Maryland basketball. And I'm not going to not talk about the Caps, but you've been heard. I saw the metrics. You want me to talk football? Fine. I will. Fine. That's what I'll do, Callow. We have no choice anymore. The audience keeps speaking to me saying, talk about football. That's what I want.
It has always been this way. It has been this way my whole entire life. I'm not surprised. I have people ask me, especially people around my age, ask why I talk so much NFL. And I say it's because the audience dictates that. So
that's
what they want. And that's how it is.
Ever since we did this, I've gotten a lot of texts and emails from people saying, don't do that. Like, do the other stuff too. And I go, this isn't about what I want to do. It's about what the audience wants. You give the audience what they want. So we're going to talk about football. That's what it is. So today, because I wanted to do this like really last week, but there were other things going on and the Commanders kept signing so many people that it was like hard to get around to this. Let's take stock of where everybody is right now. And I want to go through the NFC today. And if nothing happens tomorrow, I'll do the AFC. But I want to talk about the NFC teams that we think have improved or not improved or gone sideways at this point. And I'm going to we'll end with the NFC East, but let me start with the NFC West, because this is one where I'm not sure what to make of a couple of teams. I'm not sure that the Rams got significantly better, but people are putting a lot of stock in Devontae Adams and seem to think that that's a massive upgrade from Cooper Kupp, or at least they're talking about it that way. They haven't really done much else other than keep Stafford, which I like after hearing what Sean McVay said, after hearing what he was saying, I don't think he ever wanted to leave. He was just trying to get as much money as he possibly could. And he used the Giants to end up getting this. And they actually dared him to go there and try. Go ahead then. If you want to go there, go ahead. And he wisely said, you know what? I'm good. I think I'll just go back to LA. And he stays there. Brady tried to get him to go to Vegas. He wouldn't do that either. So he stays there. He's going to end his career there. That makes it. Well, I don't know why you would leave McVay at this stage unless the other teams are offering you so much money compared to what they're offering you. How do you turn it down? So I would describe, I don't know, Rams up might be, I think I'm only saying that because I think compared to the rest of the teams in their division, that they actually look like they've maybe have gotten a little better or just stayed steady. And they did make the playoffs a year ago on what was supposed to be a reset year, specifically on defense. And the other three teams, I don't know what to make of Seattle or Arizona yet. I do know, and I know people are trying to paint it like San Francisco's the Rams. They're not going to fall off a cliff. You'll see. They were 6-11 a year ago, and they let a lot of talented people go. So I don't buy them as like, don't try to sell me that they've gotten better to this point. They're resetting. That's clear. I'll get to the other two in a minute. But on those two, which have been kind of the standard bearers for the last 5-7 years, Rams up only because of what everybody else is doing. San Francisco down because they're resetting.
The Rams also, they've become so good at drafting as of late that like you have to put the arrow up even a little bit more, because they don't only get good draft picks and rookies. They get guys that contribute right away too, right? Like that's how they've rebuilt this team so fast. They were F them picks, and then all of a sudden they were making the best draft picks, especially on offense, that we've seen in a long, long time. That's how they rebuilt that wide receiver core. I know they still had to add Adams, but still, all those guys were draft picks. So I think Rams, yeah, absolutely have the arrow pointing up. San Fran, too, like, I'm still, like, people have heard me, I'm not a believer in Purdy. So, like, you think Purdy's going to do more with less? I don't. Like, I don't have the faith that he's going to get it done. I also think the McCaffrey thing is back to being real now, of him being, like, injury prone. He had a couple years there where he was the best, weapon in football. But now, I'll believe it when I see it, when he's back being healthy. And if he's not back being healthy, we saw it last year. That offense doesn't run the same. So San Fran, yeah, completely down. I would still say, though, San Fran's down still might be good enough to beat Seattle and or Arizona, though. Maybe. So I will say that, like, down, but they still could be the second best team in the division. So
for the other two, they're both a little hard to figure. Like, Arizona, I heard some whispers that they would have traded Kyler. Like, I kind of, if they got the right thing from somebody, that they would actually consider it and do it. Now that we are where we are and looking at the draft class, I can't imagine that they're going to do that. So I think they're going to come back and run it back with him again. Although, like, God, he is such a talented player, but doesn't win very much. And it's just kind of hard to know, like, where he is. And they went and signed Josh Sweat. So they did spend some money, which makes them a little bit better. I remember early in the season, I felt like they were very competitive. And maybe them kind of staying sideways, as I put it here, works out enough because if you just talk about this division the way it is currently, I'll get to Seattle in a minute, them being competitive or second place, or if the Rams aren't really actually that much better, maybe they're kind of there, because this doesn't feel like a very strong division anymore. All of a sudden, like, maybe San Francisco does reset and they get good. I'll believe it when I see it with them. Maybe the Rams are getting better, but, like, everyone keeps saying, well, they have this young defense. Yeah, a young defense that got shredded when they got into the playoffs against a really good team. Like, we'll see if they actually get a lot better than this. Arizona kind of just held down the fort, maybe got a little better on defense, got a player of need. Whether they overpaid him or not doesn't even matter. They needed somebody like this. Marvin Harrison's year 2 now for them. Kyler is good, not bad. He's good. The question is how good, or how dedicated always. They're actually stable. They kept the coaching staff around. Like, because of what everyone else is doing, I would actually buy that they're the second best team in the division all of a sudden, and they just need the Rams to not have a great year to have a shot to steal that by next year, just as where we stand right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it's going to be hard to overtake them. But with Seattle, too, like, I point out with Seattle, that is, I don't know what they're doing. I think, like, with Arizona, they're trying to they added some pass rushing. That's never the worst plan in the world. They seem like to just be kind of moseying through this roster. Seattle's, to me, is the biggest question mark here of, like, you guys traded Geno, but then signed Darnold, and then you traded DK, but then got Kupp. Like, I don't really know what they're doing except for hitting a reset there, which I don't think a roster needed that kind of reset. You know what I mean? Like, there are resets when things are going wrong that, hey, everyone needed a new change of scenery. That was one where I didn't quite understand what they're doing. So, like, Arizona,
I don't know what they're doing either.
Like, Arizona, I kind of get it. You're stuck with Kyler. You got to run it back. You hope that Harrison actually plays better, right? Like, I think that's the hope going into this year too, is that he picks it up a little bit. But Seattle's the one that I just kind of scratch my head out of. What are you guys actually doing? What is your long-term plan?
I don't understand what they're doing. They're the ones of the four, like San Francisco, they hit a wall. They had a lot of money spent. They need to move on. They need to reset. Okay. Like, I get it. I think they might have gone a little too far. And in my opinion, I think their big mistake right now in the here and now is to throw all your cards into Purdy. Like, when you've got a Ferrari, then he can be the quarterback. But when you don't, we're going to find out. We're going to find out fast. And this is where I think ownership has stepped in on them and said, we want him to be our quarterback. And that puts them in a terrible position, because his agent goes, the owner wants him, which means we can ask for anything that's not unreasonable. We can ask for it. So he's going to get 40, 50 million a year. And they don't have the same team that they had. And I wonder how Lynch and Shanahan feel about that. They're watching all this talent walk out the door. I'm sure they love Purdy, but they don't love him and think he's Josh Allen. Like, nobody could be that unreasonable and think that. Seattle's makes no sense. Seattle brings in a new coaching staff. I don't know how they can sell themselves that Sam Darnold is better than Geno Smith when he's been there. But if at most it's a sideways move, but it's a new quarterback, who are the weapons on this team now that they traded DK because he just didn't want to be there anymore? They let Lockett go. That's natural. He'd been there a very long time.
Yeah.
He's making decent money. That one's not that big of a deal. But who are they replacing these guys with? I don't know. They don't have a good offensive line, which is why Geno got hit so much. Their running backs are very good. Kenneth Walker's very good. Had some injuries last year. Defensively, they're starting to get a couple more pieces, and the coach is a defensive coach, but no one is like thinking they're the best defense in the NFL. I don't know what they're doing, and I really respect John Schneider and all them and what they do up there. I don't know what they're doing right now, and it doesn't feel like it's going to work. Like, as we stand here in March, it doesn't feel like it's going to work.
No, they have to have like an unreal draft and then band together. What I will say with Seattle, though, too, like what I think what like kind of irked me was like they had a winning season last year. They won 9 games. Like, people kind of just didn't realize that. Like, they didn't make the playoffs. They weren't good enough in the NFC. But I thought, oh, that's a really solid first season for them with what they had in that division. And they just kind of decided we're going to hit the reset button like this. To me, it's almost like, are they tanking? I don't think they are, but
I don't think so.
But it feels like they got worse.
If they were tanking, why'd they get Darnold? Like, they might as well traded Geno and played Sam. If that's what they were really going to try to do.
No, exactly. So like, that's what I don't understand. Like, they had a winning record. So if you think you're going to get better with a draft free agency, you would have just added and not gone down. On San Fran too, I think like you remember that I circled this last year. The fact that ownership chirped up enough that we saw reports in San Fran last year that they didn't want to keep spending the money they were spending. And then they handed all of those extensions out with Ayuk and Trent. And I forget, they signed one other person last year too. Like, the fact that we're now hearing that ownership wants to keep Purdy now too. I'm telling you, man, there's a a split that's happening in San Fran that started last year, and it's happening again this year. That's never good. You know how this goes. It festers a little bit. So I'm very interested to see what happens with them.
It's a different situation, but years ago, the ownership got into it with Jim Harbaugh. And eventually run him out of town. And I remember sitting there going, you've been in the NFC Championship 3 years in a row. That's really hard to do. Why in the world would you think that you know better than this guy? And they ran him out of town. And it's a little bit of history repeating. They finally said, we've had enough with listening to you because you're spending a lot of money, but we didn't win a Super Bowl. Meantime, you were in 2 of them and right there for others. And one of them, frankly, was because guys got hurt in the middle of the NFC Championship game. Quarterbacks got hurt in it. Like, they've been right there. So the people who are making the decisions are making the right ones. They're right there. I think they just balked it. We don't have a ring and we're sick of spending all this money. And oh, by the way, we got to pay Brock Purdy. And that's been slow rolled. And I think because Lynch and Shanahan ought to look at that critically, because he's not Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels or Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes. I think he's a very good player. Like, I hate when people go at him and say like he's not. I think he is. I've watched a lot of film on him because we've played them the last couple of years or a couple of years ago. He's very good. Like, I think but he's not going to elevate everybody else. And if you don't have Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey standing around him, is he going to make everybody better? And that's a big question they have to answer. Ownership has stepped in. That's why I said, mark this down. They're going to go the wrong way for at least a couple of years because they're resetting a roster, getting rid of a lot of contracts, talent's walking out the door, and they're leaning in on a quarterback who's good but not elite. This is not good. They're making a mistake. They are.
Look at both those scenarios, too, that you laid out with Harbaugh and now with Shanahan. They never had to spend a high draft pick on a quarterback. They did with Kyle Shanahan, and they got lucky and picked Purdy. That went over the Trey Lance decision. But even with Harbaugh, they had Kaepernick. They got him in the 2nd round, right? Like, they didn't have to give up a haul to get him, and he was fantastic for a couple of years, too. Like, they got lucky they got Purdy, and the Trey Lance thing, didn't actually hurt them in the long run. I think maybe we're seeing it now where they don't have a lot of talent or
that's right.
More talent to replace the talent that's on its way out, essentially.
Yeah. It's their one big whiff. The Trey Lance
Right.
thing's their one big whiff.
Sure.
Because of what they traded to get him. Had they just been there and had they just taken him, you know, like obviously it would have been a miss, but it wouldn't have been as big a miss because of the draft capital that went along with it. It's the one big whiff for them. All right.
And I was gonna say, and I say all of that too, they traded for Garoppolo as well. Like they didn't
That's
make
right.
these huge, like they didn't give up all these first round picks besides the Lance trade, but they didn't give up like this huge haul to get any of their quarterbacks in either one of those regimes too. Like they should consider themselves lucky they didn't have to make the RG3 trade like that.
Like honestly, I saw a couple people write this and they're just guessing, but like trade Purdy and let Rodgers come in for a year actually doesn't seem like that off to me, honestly.
I was calling for that in the summer of last summer of like, let's watch to see where he goes. Cause I think Purdy is a part of this merry-go-round that people aren't talking about. I'm with that actually.
Let's see. All right. NFC South. Okay. This is an interesting division now. It was a really down division a year ago. And this year, I'm not actually quite sure. Tampa Bay has stayed steady. I don't think that their front office gets enough credit because they keep their guys. And that's actually not that easy to do. And not unlike what we're talking about here in Washington these days, you know, with Peters and Quinn, where the culture is really good. You'll hear that there too. Like the Chris Godwin thing, the GM went on local radio down there and said teams were putting blank checks in front of him and he turned them down to stay here. Mike Evans took a very team-friendly deal to stick around and play there. They have a lot of guys that play out their careers there, which is actually abnormal around the NFL now these days. Like a lot of players do not do that. Like I'm hoping Terry's going to do that here, but a lot of players, look, Deebo Samuel's on our team now. Like a lot of really legendary type players that could play a whole career somewhere aren't doing it as much as they used to. They need a lot more credit than what they have. Baker's turned into a very, very high level quarterback for them, and they keep their players together. And so they're steady. So to me, they remain, as we stand here in March, the team to beat in that division. They were the team. They've won the division, whatever it is, 3, 4, 5 years in a row anyway. And they haven't gotten weakened in any way possible. They just got Hassan Reddick to hopefully help the pass rush. I honestly think that they stayed steady, maybe made a minor upgrade, but they kept the group back together, which is not what you can say about anybody else in their division. They're the team to beat.
No, 100%. Like, and they've, as you said, they've been consistent, honestly. And, you know, it's funny, like they signed Baker, they've signed their wide receivers. It's that defense that actually is making them better than everyone else in the division too. That defense has been very good. And they just kind of keep replacing them with more talented players as guys get, you know, kind of picked off between free agency and retirement. Like they're keeping guys long enough for that. Tampa, like, it's funny. Tampa's just the most consistent out of the 4 teams in that division. They don't let themselves get to a point where they have a really, really high draft pick or they miss all of these players. And look, they're the shining example of what I've said all the top teams in the AFC need to act like. Don't get too dramatic if you have a little bit of a down year. Keep it steady. Take your shot the following year. That's what they've been doing. Look, if they keep doing that, they're going to keep getting a home playoff game down there, right? Like, didn't work out for them last year with playing Washington, but you keep getting that home playoff game, you never know what could happen.
Well, Sarah Walsh talks about this. So I'm going to actually I'm going to talk to her later this week. I'm going on Good Morning Football later this week while she's hosting up there. And she always talks about this every time I have her on about Tampa because she covers them and has covered them. She lives down there. And she said, you know, they just get no media attention. But, you know, if you really sit back and go look at them, like they should be getting a lot more than they do. Like name a better trio of receivers right now than Evans, Godwin, and this guy McMillan. You might not have a better trio right now in the NFL than that group that they put out there. Bucky Irving's turned out to be a really, really good hit running back. Like you could argue their skill position group is about as good as anybody's right now, like across the board. And Baker's turned out to be a really, really, really good quarterback. They did lose their offensive coordinator. He went to Jacksonville. So we'll have to see with that. But they lost their offensive coordinator the year before, and they didn't have a problem last year, and Baker had a career year. They're the team to beat. With New Orleans, I'm describing them as sleepy. They didn't move off of Carr because they didn't have a better option. If they had a better option, I think they probably would have thought about it, but they don't. So I agree with this. Don't just dump a guy. You have to have a better option. He's a professional quarterback. You keep him in there. But you look across the board and you go, I don't see how they got better. A couple of their players have been picked off. They're going to have to start drafting people. Their cap situation's always kind of wonky. Kamara's getting old now. Like, I don't know. Like, I look at them and I go, I don't know. I don't know what the path is to them winning when I look at them. Like, they're not going to be a bad team. And if they don't have the injuries to Carr like they did a year ago, maybe they're a little bit more competitive than they were, but nobody's scared of them.
No, New Orleans, like, they keep kicking the can down the road on their salary cap. And I'm waiting for them to just hit the reset button for a year. Like, it's only going to take them a year or two to truly hit the reset button. But God, they just keep signing and extending guys out to mitigate the cap hit. And I'm like, you're not good enough already. How are you kicking this down the road again and trying to sign minimal guys? Like, I remember it came out, they had to redo Carr's deal this offseason just to have enough money to sign their draft picks whenever they all come up. Like, to me with New Orleans, it's their front office. They're just not getting better fast enough. They're constantly getting some talent in the first, second round, whatever. And then that's like all they ride on for a long time because they don't have a good enough salary cap situation. New Orleans is sleepy because they have to be sleepy. Like, there's nothing they can actually do. If I'm a New Orleans fan, I'm just frustrated by just give me the reset year so you can get the salary cap back to where you like need it to be. And once you're off of Carr, you have a bunch of money, but they're not off of Carr and they have all these dummy years added to his contract already.
The other two, Carolina and Atlanta, one of the two is going to make a leap this year. I'm not sure which one, actually, but one of the two is going to do it. I don't think Atlanta's defensive personnel is good enough yet. So I think that they got a little ways to go. And in a division where Tampa Bay's offense is really, really good and Carolina's could get pretty good, I think they're in trouble, right? So, but I buy Penix after seeing him live in person and after obviously off of his college career. I buy him. I buy the hype around him. I buy they're going to rally around him, and I buy their offensive weaponry. So I think offensively, there's a leap that's going to happen with them. Defensively, I'm not sure. With Carolina, I think one of the underrated storylines of last year, they hired this coach who had done really well with quarterbacks around the NFL, kind of turning their careers around. He gets Bryce Young, had a terrible rookie season, gets benched early in his second season. We saw them early in the year, blew them out, right? By the time they got around to him playing again, he looked like a completely different player, much more confident player. I still don't know whether he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. His size bothers me. You know, that he's so small. His size bothers me. But this quarterback whisperer got to him too. Remember that Philadelphia game? They nearly beat them. He was driving them down the field. They were winning games at the end of the year. Like, I'm not sure that they don't surprise people because of the same way I would talk about the NFC West. They could be, if New Orleans is really sleepy and Atlanta's defense isn't very good, they could be the second place team in that division. And all of a sudden they're kind of right there and surprising people. One of those two is going to take a leap this year and be a lot better than they were. I just can't figure out yet which one it is.
Yeah. The Panthers going toe to toe with so many good teams the second half of the year really was underrated. Remember, they almost beat the Chiefs too.
That's right.
Like they almost beat Kansas City. They went to overtime with Tampa. I remember that was a crazy game. It was
either Philadelphia or Kansas City where Leggett had a wide open pass he just dropped that would have been a touchdown and they would have won one of those games.
Right. And so like I thought Carolina actually like they just played really hard down the stretch too, which is more than you can say with that team over the last 3 or 4 years essentially. So I think this one's going to turn like what's going to make the leap easier, playing hard against everybody and a little bit better quarterback play, or Michael Penix playing really well and lifting Atlanta to where they need to be. Because let's be honest here too, like we saw it last year, you can duct tape a defense together if you have good quarterback play and get yourself some wins. So like I would say that in Atlanta, they probably have a better shot at that. It's how good can Penix be? How fast can he get good, essentially?
If I'm going to pick one of these two quarterbacks to kind of break out, it would be Penix.
Yeah, agreed.
But this quarterback coach, Canales, who's the head coach there, really has worked wonders with a lot of quarterbacks, and he really did it with Young. So I'm not sure. Like, I'm more inclined to buy that Penix is going to break out and be a very, very good player. Like, I was talking about this with you like a week ago. This quarterback class from last year is going to go down as one of the best ever. Caleb's going to be good. Like he is. He's going to be good. Jaden already is. Jaden had the best rookie season any quarterback's ever had. Drake May didn't play enough, didn't have any weapons around him. Now he's got a really good head coach. Let's see what happens there. I still don't see the offensive weaponry yet around him, but let's see. I'll buy it. The limited stuff I saw, I'll buy. Like, I get why they liked him as a prospect. Penix is going to be good. Nix is in the perfect spot for him and thrived in it. We haven't seen McCarthy yet. This is like that Dan Marino quarterback year. I think in a couple years, we're going to be talking about this draft class as one of the greatest of all time for quarterbacks.
This is what the 2021 draft class was supposed to be. Not the Trey Lawrence, the Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, who's picked 2, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, that. That's what that Justin class
Fields.
Was. Yeah, yep. Fields. Yeah, that class. That's what this was supposed to be. Essentially, this one has already shown they're better than that 2021 draft class. Because I think he could make the argument. Every quarterback you just named from last year, I've seen a little bit more than I've seen out of Trevor Lawrence. Like, I don't believe in Lawrence, to be completely honest. Like, I don't think he deserved that contract. I've seen more like boom potential from the guys last year. And the one guy you don't even know about one of them. You don't even know about McCarthy. Like, McCarthy could be good too. We just haven't seen him play yet.
That's right.
I'm with you. I actually talked about it a little bit on my show yesterday of, I think there are going to be teams that we look back of, how did they not trade up and get some of these guys because there were so many? Like, how did the Steelers not trade up and just grab any of the guys available last year? I think we're going to be talking about it for a long, long time.
Yep. Let me take a quick break. Brave West Show is ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let me get into the NFC North now, which I think is last year was a buzzsaw, and I think it's gotten better, which is really, with the exception of Detroit, should be nervous because they lost both of their coordinators, albeit they run back basically the same team. And I would think they would have a little more luck defensively and not lose 58 people down the stretches, which is what happened to them and why. The more I get away from the season, the more I'm like, I have no idea why the Commanders were such a big underdog in that playoff game based on what Detroit's defense was at that point, which they were metrically and statistically the worst defense in the NFL the last 6 weeks of the season. Not because of anything other than they lost half of their starters, including their playmaking starters. Like, they had no shot. So they were a turnover or two away from getting upset by somebody. And I'm pretty convinced, even if they'd won that game, they were losing to Philadelphia. Philadelphia would have shredded them too. Like, they had no shot against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game had they gone that far. They haven't really done much here. Now, on offense, what is there to do other than, run it back? They had one of the greatest offenses of all time, one of the most prolific offenses of all time. Why would you change anything other than Ben Johnson's gone? You bring in the new coordinator. On defense, I'm surprised they haven't tried to figure out something because Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're still on rookie contracts. They haven't gotten to have to pay them yet. Laporta is too. I would think that they would have wanted it, but maybe it was just the free agent class, which we talked about here. If you looked at the list of players that were available, who were the game-changing players that you wanted to bring in? Maybe they came to the same conclusion when they looked at it. Maybe they haven't made their move yet, but I think they need to, because when you get to the other three teams, what you're going to see is all of them really ramped up their rosters and are closing the gap on them significantly, in my opinion.
What I will say with Detroit and losing coordinators, whatever, when you are stacked like they are in the trenches, it is kind of hard to screw that up, right? Like, at the end of the day, they have one of the best offensive lines. They have a great pass rush as well. I think that those are things that hold true no matter who the coaches are year to year, whatever you want to say. So for Detroit, like, the hold is still pretty good there, right? Like, at the end of the day, the offensive line is going to be really, really good to run the ball, protect Goff, all that. I think they have good skill position players. So I'm with you. Detroit's hold, though, is a lot more different than some of the other teams we've talked about thus far. So I will give them that. They have a bunch of talent.
When you go 15-2, the idea that you need to rip things apart is crazy, and they don't, right? And they have, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to turn into the best player in the NFL if he's not already that now in the next couple of years before they have to pay him. All right, so the other three teams, the Packers improved. They got the best, in my opinion, offensive lineman of free agency or trade. They signed Aaron Banks out of San Francisco, so it does lead me to believe they're going to try to run the ball a little bit more than maybe they have, take a little bit off of the plate of Jordan Love. It makes them better. The Vikings getting Hargrave and John Allen for what was, geez, that was a top 10 defense to start with. Very creative in the way that they created pressure. Now they bring in a couple of veterans to try to secure the middle of the line. You know, if their defense is going to be top 10 to top 5, turnover prone again, then JJ McCarthy playing, maybe they can get by with what is essentially a rookie quarterback, because that looks like it's leading in that direction. The open question is him. I look at their roster and I go, they were almost better than Detroit a year ago. They could be better than them this year based on what they added on defense. But the open question is, we haven't seen McCarthy play. So we don't really know, is he going to act like a rookie and blow a couple of games for them? I don't really know. As for the Bears, I think of the groups that should be excited, especially off of what they had a year ago, they got the right coach for sure. If the right coach at the right time for the right player. They loaded up on the offensive line with a couple of guys he knows personally. So that's always a good sign. Like, look what happened with Biotish when he showed up here, when a coach who knows him brings a guy in. They went and got Jonah Jackson. They know some of these players. They already had pretty good skill position guys. They could easily draft Ashton Genty. And then all of the sudden, they've got all there. Defensively, they already had a pretty good group. I think they just need to be remotivated into playing. They, to me, improved the most across the board, and I buy them. As much as I know around here, everybody wants to like laugh at Ben Johnson for what he did a year ago. I think he's walked into what looks to be, I think, is it a dysfunctional organization? I don't really know, because they keep losing a lot. They seem to have good teams. They keep losing a lot. But Caleb Williams better be ecstatic with what's happened here. I think he's going to be good. Like I am not down on him at all. I think the game needs to slow down for him a little bit. I think this coordinator is going to help him out. If they have viable, I think they're going to be very tough to stop. And their arrow up. The problem for them is their division. All three of those other teams are all good. Like, we went through those other two divisions earlier. We'll go through the NFC East in a minute. They're in the toughest division by far. So they may have improved the most, but they got to get over all three of those other teams, and I'm not going to happen. But they're not going to be an also-ran like they were a year ago. That's not going to happen.
For the Bears, too, I feel like the Bears psychologically out of all of these teams are the most fragile, too. Like, they, to me, are like the glass cannon. Like, they could be one of those teams that does look good for 3 or 4 weeks, or they have a bad stretch and they're not going to be able to pull themselves out of it, because that town reminds me of our town, you know, before last year, where it's like, oh, here we go again. You guys made all of these moves and then you're bad again. The Bears are the ones I'm most worried about of those three that you named that improved, mainly because I just think the feeling around them is completely different. It's like, well, you got good again. You better perform this time around. And as I kind of mentioned last segment, and I mentioned about the AFC teams, like, it's about not losing your mind sometimes. And the Bears lose their mind every single year, it seems, with what they do. So with Chicago, to me, it's more of like a mental game with them. On the Vikings and the Packers, I'm with you. I liked what the Packers did. Like, they don't usually spend a lot of money. They went and revamped the offensive line a little bit. They're going to try to play bully ball a little bit. I think it's them reacting to Detroit, that they can't rely on Jordan Love from here on out. They need to make sure that he is not hurt from here on out, and that wasn't a fluke 2 seasons ago with that second half where he basically looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They're at a little bit of a crossroads. The Vikings, I'm with you, but I will say it almost seems like it was a blessing in disguise that JJ didn't play last year, because they're going, all right, we're good enough. That's what Sam Darnold did. If JJ McCarthy can't live up to Sam Darnold, then we're going to need to hit the reset button on a quarterback anyways. And what they did is just go all in on defense again and work with that rookie quarterback to basically not let teams score even as many points as they did last year on them. I like what the Vikings did, and I like the Vikings formula. It's going to hinge on JJ, but what have we heard about JJ? JJ will do whatever it takes to just win football games. I think they're in the business of winning ugly, and they signed guys to do that essentially.
Being in that, the tough part is being in that division, you're going to be in a lot of close games.
Yeah.
And not everybody's Jaden that comes through and converts every fourth down and makes the play at the end of the game. And that's where I think we're going to find out with him. He's in a tough spot. It's a very tough division. And as for the Bears, the last thing on them, to your point about the mental game with them, I'm big on first impressions. Now that I've seen Ben Johnson take this role as a head coach, there is a little, you can already feel it. This in the way he interacts. There's a little bit of the Will Ferrell, you've got to keep your composure character in him where he's saying that and throwing chairs against the wall. And again, similarly, they're in a very tough division that they need to stay steady and not let the ship turn upside down, because that's what happened a year ago and could easily happen again. And I think they're way better and should feel like they're way better. But this, more than anything in this first year, this is going to be about, can we be there at the end and in the high leverage games without beating ourselves?
Yep.
And we're going to have to wait and see if they're able to do it. All right, to the NFC East. Here's what I would say about Philadelphia. They haven't made their move yet. Howie's not going to let this go like this. So they lose Josh Sweat, they lose Milton Williams, they trade CJ Gardner-Johnson, which obviously had to have been a locker room thing, because I can't figure out for the life of me why they would let him go, other than he wore out his welcome in some way, probably not a nefarious way, but just did. And so they wanted to remove him out of the locker room. Their defense is not better today. It isn't. It's worse. But did they lose anybody that alters them? No, they didn't. So who's the replacement? What's going to happen? What surprise do they have up their sleeve? Obviously, offensively, they're good and they're set. What surprise do they have up their sleeve on defense? And I just don't think Howie's made his move yet. And let's see what happens in and around the draft, where he's a miracle worker. So they, to me, today, they're a touch weakened from where they were. They're not better than where they were a year ago, but they're not in a position where I don't expect them to do something where we go, oh, they're fine. And that's what I think. I think he hasn't made his move yet. That's all.
What I will say is they haven't done nothing. Like, they've re-signed a bunch of their guys.
Yes.
Like, they gave them new deals, kept them happy. That's not nothing. Like, there's a reason why Philly is the way that they are in terms of their attitude, how they play, all that. He took care of their own. So I will say, I don't think that's nothing.
They lost 3 starters, their best edge rusher, a very good defensive tackle, their best safety gone. So that stuff doesn't go unnoticed, but I don't see any of them as, well, that's what's going to sink them. None of them feel that way to me at all.
Exactly right. And I also think the defensive line is going to be better. Like, they're going to get a little bit older. They're going to figure out how to, like, take care of themselves too. So that's the other part too, is they're going to improve. That was a young defense. So I will say, like, that's also, a little bit of the factor here too. And he's nailed his draft picks for years now. He's nailed the top draft picks to contribute right away. I wouldn't be surprised if they find the replacements in the draft. No problem.
Yeah. They may find the edge rusher they need in the draft. Like, that's very possible that that's going to happen. As for Dallas, they keep getting bullied to do stuff. They've dabbled in free agency. They haven't done anything major. They revamped their running back room with a couple of good but not great players. Maybe is Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders that much better than Rico Dowdle? Take your pick, whether you think that's the case. Their offensive line is not better than it was a year ago. I don't know who their number 2 receiver is. Like, there's the same questions they had remain. So at least they're dabbling in it because they were probably pushed to, because they just haven't spent a lot of money in it. But overall, they look like a sinking ship to me. And until proven otherwise, or until they do something big, which I think it's a little too late to do something big, I think that they're a sinking ship, albeit they will select a quarterback in this draft. But knowing them, it probably won't be high. So they're going to pick their next Romo Dak is what they're going to do, and they're going to stick him in the system behind Prescott.
It has never been more apparent to me, and I've had this theory for years, and that I've said this over and over again, that the Dallas Cowboys are the Chicago Cubs before they won a World Series. They are perfectly content competing. They are perfectly content getting into the playoffs, having some skill position players. They are not interested in pushing themselves over the edge and winning a championship. I'm convinced of it now, because they do not act with a sense of urgency of signing players. They do not try to improve their roster greatly. They make moves here and there, but like, there's that statistic, going into free agency this year, they don't spend money on contracts. Like, they actually don't dole out these big contracts besides signing their own here and there. I'm convinced they are the Cubs. They want to be kind of the lovable losers at this point. They're not, but that's what they do. I'm not surprised this is how they're approaching free agency.
For the Giants, like I know they're very easy to make fun of because they're searching under rocks to find a quarterback. It really hasn't worked out. They got used by a couple of people during the offseason, Stafford and I think Rodgers, unless he ends up going there, which I'd really be surprised if he did. But Stafford did for sure. And they just haven't been able to pull it off. And they're sitting here at number 3. So I think they did. I thought they were going to do something nuts because they're trying to save their jobs. But they went and signed Jameis as a potential bridge quarterback. They're clearly going to take a quarterback at number 3. That could be Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And I think in either case, that actually makes sense to me. And it also, for their own keep their job, position, they kind of needed to do this. Get a bridge quarterback. Don't play the quarterback early. You got to let them develop. It almost like forces the team to go, well, we got to see this thing through. And I will say this, on the other side of the ball, if you really look at their personnel, there was an upgrade there. Like their secondary on paper is way better than it was a year ago. And they already had a very good front with Lawrence, Burns, Thibodeau. Lawrence, Burns specifically are two of the best at their positions. Defensively, they're going to be a problem. Watch. They're going to be a problem next year. Offensively, I don't know that I see it other than Neighbors as a freak, but the rest of it isn't going to scare anybody still at this point. But defensively, if they can stay motivated, New York media doesn't run Daboll out of town if they start slow or anything like that. If they can just keep it together, it's like the Patriots a year ago. They can just keep it together. They're actually going to be very competitive on that side of the ball, but they have to keep it together, and that's going to be hard for them to do.
The Giants, sometimes they're the example of the teams of sometimes it's just as important of what you do, of what you don't do. And I think not going crazy for a quarterback this offseason is the smart thing to do. They're getting Jameis 2 years, $8 million. That's a bargain. Like, I'm not saying Jameis is like amazing or anything, but pairing him with a rookie, kind of playing the string out with this crew, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. And you invested on defense while you're not paying a quarterback. I think this is a perfectly fine offseason. The Giants remind me of the Commanders a little bit in that they weren't going to fix everything this offseason. They fix what they can. That defense, I think they're going to lose some close games this year. The offense is kind of nowhere to be found. But all in all, like, you can't ask for much when you're not in a position to get a top quarterback. This is the offseason they've had. I think it's fine. Like, I'm not here to criticize on them. They dug their grave of what they're standing in, but you don't want to panic and give up all this money to someone that's not going to be that good.
If they had a quarterback, I'd argue they had the best offseason of the 4 teams, but because of what they did on defense. But because they don't have a quarterback and they struck out trying to get a couple of these guys, they didn't. The team that improved themselves the most is the Commanders by getting Laramie Tunsil and being able to reshift the offensive line, the trickle-down effect of that, what it means for the draft, opens the draft board up to them, getting Deebo Samuel for the right price, a 5th-round pick. And then defensively, I need to believe it. I need to see it to believe it that they're actually better than they were, but I don't think that they're done yet either. And I think they know that. And I think there's more coming here. So the roster's improved off of a 12-5 team. Let's see what happens. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram watch the show. ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. I need to spend a couple of minutes saying what is the first of what is going to be a long goodbye to the really great voice of the Washington Nationals, Bob Carpenter, who announced yesterday that this will be his final season with the team. It's 20 years. It's amazing. 20 years. Bob's had an amazing run, not only just calling baseball for years and years and years, but basketball as well. But he's obviously synonymous, not just here, but across the country as a baseball voice, one of the best in the business. We've been very lucky in this area with people like him and Joe Beninati being the voices of these teams on television for all of these years. And so I just want to, well wish to Bob, and I'm glad he did this now so that we could celebrate him this year. And, is he going to get the Jeter tour and get gifts everywhere he goes? I don't know. But I think it just will be a nice reminder that when you tune in to hear Nats games, that this is the last time you're going to get a chance to hear him. And he's one of the best. He's going to be hard to replace. So congratulations, Bob, on this decision. I know it's very hard. He admitted that it's very hard to do. I am not in a position where I'm even remotely close to thinking about it. But I can imagine when I do get there, it will be the most difficult decision you can make in your life. There's nothing more fun in this business, and you're more privileged to do than call the games for these teams. It's hard to walk away from it. So for Bob to do that, I know that he knows the time is right for him. I liked that he said some people stay too long. I don't feel like I have, but I don't want to get there. I appreciated that he said that. I totally understand that. You don't want to ever embarrass yourself. Bob never has. He's been a tremendous voice of this team, and I'm glad he did this now so we can enjoy him for one final season.
No, I thought they were supposed to play yesterday. They were supposed to play the Orioles, but the game got rained out, for an exhibition game. And I loved the clip that the Nationals tweeted with him, Kevin Franzen, and Dan Kolko. Dan, who's been there for a long time as well, who fills in for Bob often. This is one of the ones that when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I watched the Nats since they've gotten here, and Bob's the only voice that they've ever had. Essentially, I thought it was fitting that on their 20th anniversary season that he does go ahead and announce this. And I was kind of thinking about it yesterday too. He was there when they were terrible when they got here, got those first teams in the 2010s into the playoffs. Then, they make it all the way to the World Series. And now we're kind of back at the reset button. It's really like a time is a flat circle thing. They're hopefully entering back into that kind of 2011, 12-ish where they can maybe sneak into the playoffs. But all I could think of was Bob's always been the voice through the good and through the bad. And one thing that I'll say about Bob too is as a producer in this area, now dealing with my own show, Bob is one of the nicest human beings. Anytime you ask him to come on a show, he's more than happy to do it. He's always just one of the nicest guys too. And I can't go without saying that as well, because you know how it is in this business. Sometimes that's not the case. Bob is literally one of the nicest humans. So yeah, I can't wait to just kind of take it in this season. I'm glad he did it at the beginning to say this.
I haven't had the opportunity really to interact with him a lot throughout my career, which is somewhat surprising considering we've been in the same place for most of it. But I love his work and he'll be missed, Yep. He really will be missed. So I'm glad, but I'm so glad he did this now so that we get to, enjoy him one final season. All right, real quick. Battle of the best in the peg, baby. It's the Caps and Jets tonight up in Winnipeg. So they blew out the Panthers, who look like an Eastern Conference contender, certainly this year. Now they get the best of the West. So what do you expect tonight?
I mean, look, the Caps have risen to the occasion in every game that they've played. Winnipeg is a different beast, though. And this one, being in Winnipeg, I think is going to be a little bit different. The Caps offense has been rolling lately. And this is where I think if they're going to take out Connor Hellebuck, that this is, the time that you do it. I think Caps are rolling here a little bit. They know how big of a deal this is. Give me a Caps 4-2 win here. I want to see how Logan Thompson plays against a good team as well. He settled down against the Panthers, and, the Caps blew him out in the second period last game. But I think the Caps win this one. They're rolling a little bit. Paul Maurice, the Florida coach, he had a quote yesterday where he basically said the Caps offensive game has no BS, but he didn't say just BS. He spelt it out essentially. Just said they're not cute. They don't make the extra pass. They don't BS around essentially. That right now their offense is clicking. So I think with the Caps offense clicking, I think they get a win tonight. But this is, not going to panic if they lose on this one. That's the other best team in the NHL. Could honestly be a Stanley Cup final preview when it's all said and done.
What's the puck drop? 9?
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock? Not bad.
Yeah, 8
all
o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm doing tonight. All right, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Bram, watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital.